Hello and welcome. Today we are going to scrape some popcorn ceilings, or remove some popcorn ceilings. So I've done almost my whole house, and I got this method down pretty solid. So a couple things you're going to need: water bottle, I guess a putty knife, a wider one. I believe this is 10-inch one. And what I actually do is I duct tape Hillbilly Deluxe this thing onto a longer pole. That way I can just get at it. So, I mean, they make ones that screw on to these poles, but some of these poles cost like 20 bucks. That's stupid. I'm too frugal and that's retarded. So I just duct tape it and it works just fine. I've done like almost my whole house with this. So we'll do the main areas with this, and then I got a little thinner putty knife to do the corners and the edges. So scraping will be part one. Part two, you wipe everything down and get it smooth. 3, you fill in any holes with some mud or joint compound, and you prime and you paint. So couple things. It is it's a very messy job, and it's pretty labor extensive. So pretty strenuous. And it is very messy, so it's kind of a bitch. But it's much better than paying somebody to do it, I suppose. As you can see, the lovely popcorn ceilings. And what I was saying is that we're going to go over it. Main areas with this little dude. What you do is you spray, water bottle spray, an area first, and that softens everything up. Then you can scrape it. It makes it way easier. So I'll demonstrate that. What else? Oh, try to cover up as much as you can. Definitely if you're using a bathroom, make sure you cover up all your holes, your sinks, your tubs, you know, toilet. But also, most certainly, you know, if you get a professional to do this, they come and they cover up the floor and everything else. And, you know, they'll tape all the way up to right where this abuts to the ceiling. But I don't. I'm just a glutton for punishment. So, alright, so let's get started. And also, one last note before you get started, make sure you get this stuff tested for asbestos. That's just your daily disclaimer, or your video disclaimer there. I've had, like I said, I've done all my house almost. So, I know that I have no asbestos up there. Usually, if it was, your house was born later than the 70s, you're alright, but better safe than sorry. They have testing kits out there, so do that. Now let's get to work. Alright, let me give you a little sampling here. Step 1, the water bottle. You don't have to get this close. Spray it down pretty good, get it nice and saturated. Get a good water bottle, not a crappy one. And then let's rock and roll. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit to let it soak in there. You can kind of judge. You don't want to get it too wet, but you get an idea once you just get going. Because it'll just start coming off in sheets. So, a lot of times it works better if you let it sit in here for a while. So spray it, wait a few seconds, a minute, and then go. Also, some areas may need more water than others, depending on just how crappy this popcorn ceiling is. May have to oversaturate some. Don't saturate too much or you're going to ruin your drywall underneath this. But you'll get a good idea once you get going and have a few practice rounds. And also, it's probably best to wear a mask and wear eye goggles. Do as I say, not as I do. And you can see, right on off in sheets. Now when you get in these corners, be careful, because you can take up the drywall tape, and you don't really want to do that. It'll just add more work for you. You can still use this one on the pole if you want to get these corners. I usually use this smaller one and just kind of go and touch them. Sometimes I'll use that longer one on the pole depending on the angle, but the thing with the smaller one here is that you can really hope and help yourself not get up this drywall tape. So that's why I usually just use this. I mean, it's just real stubborn back here. And if you have stubborn areas, spray more water on it and go. So she's all scraped. Now, a couple things. You know, you're gonna get probably, okay, so you see this area right here, a little stubborn, there's still a little bit left. But the next step, where we wipe this down, is a method that should really, that should smooth everything out. So if you have like little bitty sections, little bitty spots that still have a little bit of that on it, then it's okay. And as I always say, do as I say, not as I do. And that's why you should probably cover your ground. It's a messy job, I'm not joking. And sweaty, it's a sweaty job, so. I'm gonna clean this up, clean everything up, get all this crap out of here, and then we'll move on to step 2. All right, so I got it somewhat cleaned up. Still a lot more cleaning to do. Like I said, that's just what happens with this job and whenever you're lazy. So if you're lazy like me and you don't tape everything off, something I do to kind of help is you can take a broom and just kind of go along the walls, but you got to keep in mind you're going to be having to hit, this dust collects on everything. So I mean, we're talking doorknobs up here on the door frame, everything, you know, shower rods, whatever. So that helps to kind of get some of the dust off. Step 2, you're going to take a towel. You're going to wet it down. You know, probably an old towel that you don't really care about. It's a pretty good idea. It doesn't need to be dripping wet. It just needs to be pretty soaked. And what you're going to do, you know, a lot of people sand on this stuff to get it smooth. This damn job's already messy enough. I don't want to sand. So I find this to work very well. Get up on a ladder, get your wet rag, and just graze it. Don't press hard, because if you press hard, you're going to start fraying your drywall and loosening up your drywall. Just kind of graze it a little bit, and it's more or less to clean, so that this will take your patching that you do, and so it'll take the paint. If not, the paint's going to be all splashy and cracked. So this is just more or less to clean off the dust. So you just go through, just a little kiss, and whenever you do this, you're going to see those little stubborn areas that maybe you didn't get all of every last little bit of the popcorn off of. They'll come up. It's going to come up and smooth out with this. So And I don't see many people do this step, but I think that it works great. I've done the sanding and it sucks. It's messy, it's terrible. So I think that this way works the best. And also, for these more stubborn areas, you may have to, I mean, you can go over it a little bit more. You just need to make sure, you know, like this area right here, I have to kind of touch up a little bit more to smooth it out. But you just want to make sure that you're not going to take any of this drywall. Also, you know, the corners and the seams of stuff is where your drywall tape's going to be. Be careful not to go too hard there or you're going to fray that drywall tape. And you're going to expose it, which in turn will just lead you to have to do more work on the patch. But, so those are two of my suggestions. So do that. You're going to have to wash this thing off and re-wet it a few times, but go all the way through, and then we'll be on to the next step. Okay, step 2 done. So now on to step 3. What you want is, we're going to patch up, you know, little holes or imperfections that are up here. So what you'll need is some joint compound and a putty knife or a drywall knife. So if you're not familiar with drywall and joint compound and stuff, it's basically a way you're deceiving your eye. So you're going to put some on and then you're going to spread it out over a wider area. That way it doesn't look like it's coming down or patched. It kind of expands out so it flows into flat with the ceiling. So because of that, you need a wider knife. This is like a 6-inch, I think. I think I'll be able to get done with this. If not, then I'll go grab my 10 or 12-inch putty knife. That way it can expand out further so you can't tell if there's patch jobs. So it just gives it an overall smoother look. Yeah, let's see. Like these little areas, you know, I kind of got a little happy whenever I was scraping it off. And so I want to smooth those out. You'll want to smooth out any drywall tape like that right there that you have kind of sticking out. You want to go over that. You can kind of see these are where the screws and nails are. And what you'll want to do is kind of smooth those out also. So any imperfections up there you want to go over. It's important to let this dry after you wipe it down. So we wiped it down, it's going to make everything a little wet up there. So give it some time to dry, make sure it's all dry, and then we'll go over it here. So, find your little areas, and then you just kind of scrape it off and smooth it out. Now, if you ended up getting a little happy whenever you're wiping everything down and frayed your drywall, and I recommend going over those areas too. So you put a decent amount of pressure on, not too much, because you don't want to lift up the drywall or this joint compound from what it's covering. But you put a little bit of pressure on it and you smooth it out. And take whatever angles are necessary to get it covered, and then just go over it and layer it out. Sometimes you gotta find just the right angle to go at. So you do that all over the areas that you need. Okay, so patchwork is all done. So that's what it's gonna look like. It looks like crap. I mean, it's just how it is. Gotta let it dry for probably a couple hours, and then we'll go to the final steps of priming and painting. I do recommend priming, not just going into paint, because this drywall and joint compound will soak up paint. I mean, you'll need multiple layers of paint. Whereas if you prime it first, I mean, really one layer usually does it good for me. So I'm not going to video the priming and painting. I'll show the finished product, but make sure you give your joint compound time to dry, And before you put this on, I cannot stress it enough, make sure that the ceiling is dry. Because if it's not dry yet, and you put this on, it's just going to clump up and get all chunky. So, work up a little sweat. This took me 2.5, 3 hours. So, it's not too crazy time consuming. And the finished product is great, which you will see now.